Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Trucked Before. This time, we and the crew of the Enterprise, or some of them, pay tribute to the Royale. Yeah, the Royale. Reminds me of Pulp Fiction. You know, what do they call Big Mac in France? This episode's like a Big Mac. It's going to have a lot of empty calories, but it's going to be very filling. You'll probably have some regrets as well afterwards. Speaking where you're not going to have regrets, go to patreon.com/IAPD. We're still building that Patreon audience up. We got bonus material. You're going to want it. Do it. Go there. Support us. Support the radio hour. Support the network. Help us help you. Patreon.com/IAPD. Almost had it wrong. What isn't wrong is this is the Royale, and It's All Been Trucked Before.
Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Trekked Before. The three of us just wandered into a hotel, and we can't get out until we complete this podcast.
Oh, man. This is Steven.
I am Keith, the foreign investor.
I'm Jimmy-Jerome, and we're about to talk about the Royale with cheese. The episode's called the Royale.
It makes me like this episode more. I'll say that.
I mean, so this is one that I watched to death because it was one of the handful I could get a hold of on VHS and from my local library when I was a kid. So I watched it a ton, and I definitely got burnt out on it. But I'm going to go ahead and jump in with my first impression. I enjoyed it.
Really?
Yeah, I did. I thought it was fun.
I did not hate it as much as I thought I would.
I was simply going to say that I guess I realized what I was going to say before we started, which was I felt like that last one took a lot out of you.
It did.
That is, yeah. So if I guess when you were talking about this episode through that lens, I thought you didn't like this one as well. So
it's not a great episode. It doesn't belong at the top of any list of best episodes, but it was a fun romp that made sense and was cohesive, and for the most part anyway. And after the drag of last week, I was happy to have this one to bounce back to.
It was one of the more memorable ones for me in the sense that I remembered having watched it at all back when it was on. I didn't remember that much about it because, we've talked about this in past episodes. I just wasn't processing things the same way then. And of course that was like 20 years ago. It's so hard for me to even imagine that. But
yeah. I remember the dead body in the bed really well. The novel in the drawer, the Data fixing the dice, all of that.
All I remembered was the dice and the Texan. Essentially, you knew you were going to roll that 7. That's pretty much it.
The Texan.
Yeah. I was just, for me, it was like, when are you guys going to figure it out? But it was still a fun episode. Again, I don't love it by any means, but I thought, I was the opposite. I was like, okay, when are we going to get to why they're stuck here? But, the NASA hook from the beginning of the episode, and like you said, the dead body in there, I thought that held sway. And I thought some of the characters they ran into and some of the other things going on were it at least kept me interested, even if I didn't love it. But we'll get more into that as we go along.
Well, and I think they gave themselves a little bit of an out of having to make the characters good because they are in a badly written novel. So if you get annoyed by a character, you just have to tell yourself, oh yeah, they're in a badly written novel. It's fine.
I wish they leaned more into it, but then I guess that wouldn't quite be it wouldn't quite be Star Trek: The Next Generation, I guess, maybe.
Well, right. I mean, I guess part of it was we were supposed to help this, or we were supposed to discover things along with them. That might have telegraphed it a little bit too much, but I appreciated the idea of them framing it that way once they got further into it. And I think that would have been a great opportunity for them to lean harder once you realize that was going on.
Yeah, I think they could have really gone into even worse writing. And, I will say at first, part of my trepidation with it was, all right, I was like, I know this is set up by an alien race and blah, blah, blah. And, but that was a more interesting catch, I guess, or semi-interesting catch, but I wish they'd lean into it more.
I think what probably would save it for or save it from being too much like one of those episodes. You didn't really have direct interaction from the aliens, and it wasn't about them testing. It was just like, here's a nice thing we're going to do for this person, and they're gone. But I did want to jump ahead to like my last note since it ties into all of this, which was I wasn't sure if this was a real book or not, because I'm hoping it wasn't, because My last note was this episode was a vehicle for a savage book review, essentially.
No, it was not a real book.
I'll do you one better, Keith. I will bring up a real book. So this may have been a swipe at a real book because it's set on Theta 8. And you know what book talks about the Thetans? The most best-selling book that talks about the Thetans. Dianetics by L. Ron Hubbard.
Didn't they call them the Thetans or the
Yeah, they're the Thetans, yeah. So, and I think you reach your nirvana when you get to level 7. That's when you get to, like Tom Cruise is a level 7. So to get to 8, you got to be really good. So this could be a swipe. I didn't do any research on this. I'm just throwing it out there. Maybe they didn't want to take too big a swipe because they didn't want Scientology to come after them. I think L. Ron Hubbard might have still been alive at this point, but not that the litigiousness has grown since then. But I hope no Scientologists are listening to this podcast unless they want to buy us or cast us in something. In which case, call us or email us. So I immediately was like Thetans. So yeah.
Well, my note on that, I wasn't sure what was going on. I thought that's what Worf was saying, that Klingon called Earth, like Theta 8.
Oh, maybe. That makes sense. That does make sense.
I mean, I was going to ask Jimmy if that's a thing. I don't know.
No, Klingons don't call Earth Theta 8.
Steven's explanation makes a little bit more sense in a way. It was just something you threw in there, but I don't know why Worf would have said that.
So yeah, the Klingons' ship reported the debris at this place. Yeah. So they went here because the Klingons reported this problem here. That's my alternate episode and my first note. I want to see the Klingons find this hotel. And how did they get out?
Oh my God.
I don't think they beamed down to win the hotel, but I would have liked to have seen 3 Klingons trying to get out.
That would have been awesome.
Right?
Yeah.
Or if the Klingons had still been in there when the Enterprise got there.
That too.
Yeah.
I don't know why they wouldn't have done something like that, actually, but you know.
So my next note, starting at the beginning here, Picard's math puzzle definitely foreshadows like what's going on in this episode in a somewhat interesting way, I thought. And then the NASA puzzle of bringing on that NASA piece, I felt like they did a reverse TOS here, whereas the TOS is going to reveal the American flag at the end or what's the Constitution, and that was terrible. Whereas if you tease us with NASA, it ended up being like really interesting to me.
Well, and just to jump ahead, I thought it was cool again that it wasn't like, oh, this is from 1997. It was from much later, wasn't it? It was. No, I take that back. They said he crashed 183 years ago, but it wasn't like our time. It was a little later.
Yes. So I've got the notes, specific years you're talking about. This astronaut left Earth in 2037. And it was our third manned attempt to leave the solar system.
Awesome.
This particular the flag had 52 stars, and they said that put it between 2033. So in the next 13 years, we're going to get 2 more states.
So Puerto Rico and Guam?
DC. I was going to say DC.
Yes. Yep.
And then in 2079, which had me looking up when was first contact, and I believe it said 2063. It was definitely in the middle of this. So this space program, not space program, but the United States, having 52 states, did survive World War III and still had those 52 states. Either that or, everything was so blown up, nobody bothered to change the flag until 2070. Nah. But yeah, I liked that bit of future history, and I liked that. I think it's unreasonable sitting here in 2020 to think we're going to have 3 manned missions outside the solar system in the next 20 years. But you never know. I mean, we put a man on the moon in 6 years? 6 years apart.
Maybe if Elon Musk sobers up.
Or if the Space Force does its job.
I was about to say, we just now got a Space Force. We got 17 years to make 3 attempts, not necessarily successful attempts.
Right.
Just the third attempt to get out.
The first you can fail miserably. Just that third one's kind of. I also I didn't think about this at the time, but so that space flight left in 2037, and I wrote down was the guy, and I don't have his name, the commander, the guy who ended up stuck there. Was he in room 237?
I don't know. I didn't write that down.
Didn't notice the room number.
That's a Shining reference.
Oh,
so that's what I was thinking. As you just said. Interestingly, that guy was played by Jack Skellington from Nightmare. He was best known for Nightmare Before Christmas.
I thought you were about to say Nicholson, which
No.
No, the thing about the flag and the thing about the flag and the NASA logo at the beginning completely lost to me. Your explanation of that just already like knocked this up a couple places for me. Just the idea, I was so distracted by the humor of it for me. I thought the way they were zooming in on that flag and holding it and zooming in again and raising that stinger up, ratcheting up that music. I thought, okay, come on, this is the reveal at the beginning. Why? And so now I'm realizing they were trying to make those details clearer. Yeah. Which just didn't even occur to me to even look at it and think of it that way.
Well, the 52 stars wasn't until they got into the hotel room and pulled the uniform out of the closet.
Are you sure there were?
That's when they talked about the 52 stars. And,
okay.
And what years that would have been and everything. That was in the hotel room. That was just the NASA and the manned space flight. All of that was from the middle of the episode. But the NASA
actually said that in the episode?
Yeah.
God, God, what? I must have been really distracted right then.
Yeah, that information I just gave you. Well, you were probably still looking at that sexy skeleton and wishing you could go to bed with him. Spoiler for my crush of the episode. Just kidding.
I must have been writing something down, I guess, or I don't know. That's so weird.
I don't know. It looked very psycho to me, like when we see his mother at the end.
Yeah.
Spoiler if you haven't seen Psycho.
Yeah, that's what I thought of. That's what I thought of too, Jimmy. I thought the same thing.
Super well preserved.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I like that we never, Dan, we'll go back, but I like that we didn't get a definitive answer to the mystery of how that ship got all the way out there. And the Enterprise was very much like, we don't know, maybe this alien race drew them out here somehow, because obviously they didn't understand them and they did something to draw them to them. Maybe they transported that ship from far away. We're not sure. So I kind of liked that whole thing. That mystery that's not quite answerable, but there was enough there to know something caused it.
You guys might be bringing me around slightly on this episode because I did note that aliens love our books. Theta 8. We remember a piece of the action. I'm going to say Mein Kampf for Patterns of Force or whatever. And the aliens never get it right exactly. These guys, I guess they got it right. They just didn't realize they weren't doing this guy a favor. But I like, and so we found this book and we built this world around it. That part, not new. That's a textbook TOS thing. But the idea that they were like, hey man, we're sorry, we kind of screwed up and we killed all your fellow crew members. So we're going to try and make it up for you. And then they screw up. That is much more interesting than so many other times we've had advanced races or whatever, try and figure stuff out and be like, well, we're going to send you V'ger back and destroy everything in his path. So many failed efforts. And at the end of the day, they still did a bad job and they should have had some kind of mechanism. And actually, I talk about that a little bit too. But that said, I think that, and that's a tell and not a show, but that's a really good tell. I thought that it's like, we felt bad. We tried to do the right thing. And guess what? You still screwed up. So this guy was stuck in a Groundhog Day thing, essentially.
That raises the issue though. Mm-hmm. Would there have been a way for him to get out the way that the Enterprise crew did if he had a way to leave anyway? Or
that was my thing.
Was he sick? Or
right. I thought at some point that somebody's going to do something different. And Riker, I think, was like, no, we don't want to interfere. I'm like, why? What's going to, either nothing changes or something finally does change, but no one here is going to kill you. Nothing, we really didn't delve into, like, if
consequences.
If Riker or somebody got him in between MacD or was it McD?
Mickey and the Bellboy.
Again, I just felt like this has got to be a tie into a McDonald's promo at the time. Which again, these last couple episodes, all we're talking about are burgers. Oh no, this episode. Sorry, this whole episode is just about burgers. It's all about burgers. Cheeseburgers.
I think something about this episode sunk into my our subconsciousness because we've got Mickey and they're talking about dames.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny. That was just more like on the edge of something for me.
I still thought, why not interfere? Because we don't know. Like if Riker or Data had gotten between Mickey D and the bellboy, and they shot at him, what happens? We don't know.
I think we needed to see like the story reset or something.
Right. That's my question.
Something like a loop. I want to know if the guy just I mean, they seem to be at a certain point in the story when they got there. Yeah. So when did the guy upstairs die? Because you still had the bellboy talking about trying to get to Mickey D at some point. So
right. Well, the guy texts, and we'll get into him later because I really like the actor until I actually read his Wikipedia. Actually, I still like him as an actor, but you're going to be. I got depressed because I read his Wikipedia. Slightly depressed. So the second time Data meets him, the guy didn't act like he knew him, right? He didn't act like he didn't know him, but he didn't act like he had met him earlier. Because remember, he was like, "I'll hold on your chips," and that was never mentioned again when Data came back. Which I get, because if some idiot left their $20, $40 of chips with me, and then you know what? If I saw them the next day, I would give them their money. Actually, I would do that. If I hadn't gambled it away.
For a sketchy book character or something, maybe he's unscrupulous.
Mm-hmm.
Good point, but
he's definitely a sleazebag.
Maybe it was like the interactions, they were like NPCs or something. They're this next station of the story at the craps table instead of the blackjack table. So then, it's like a new interaction. Maybe that's just a stretch, though.
I'm not sure.
But yeah, that's the kind of thing that would have been fun to explore, but not necessarily at the expense of anything else if they had to make that decision, I guess.
Right, because
in a condensed episode.
Right, because I said Groundhog Day, but if this story repeated over and over, it wouldn't be as interesting as Groundhog Day. Not to me, but I also think that's one of the best romantic comedies of the 90s. But
I feel like we've done enough Star Trek episodes that repeat themselves. We didn't need another one. I'm glad this one didn't.
Yeah. No, I like time loops. Time loops, I mean, they're usually fun to do, especially if you do something interesting with them. But yeah, I mean, this didn't really need that, I guess, except just I wanted to know how this thing worked exactly. But
yep.
Yeah, I wrote it's Twilight Zone-y, but yeah, it's really Star Trek-y. It is what it is, because it's it's going to a place and they can't get out, and because at first actually. I thought when they beamed down, and I thought that was a cool shot where it's the three guys and there's that, the planet or the noxious fumes above them. I thought it looked very The Empath, which is another episode where it's like, all right, where are we and how do we get out of here? And there's weird doors and there's this woman on a platform and that kind of stuff. So it was a little Empath too, which is not a bad reference to me, not a bad illusion, not a bad illusion. That's what I was going for. Bad illusion. Not a bad illusion.
So I did want to talk a little bit about the writer of this episode, Tracy Torme. He was one of the executive story editors of The Next Generation in the first two seasons, and he clashed hugely with Maurice Hurley, who a lot of people blame for screwing up the first two seasons. And in this episode, Maurice Hurley rewrote him so much that Tracy took his name off of the episode, and it is listed as written by Keith Mills. Because he was mad at all the rewrites they did. The other episodes that Tracy Torme has written that we've seen include The Big Goodbye, the Dixon Hill episode, and The Schizoid Man. I have to say, maybe this episode was better from Maurice Hurley's rewrites because neither one of those pop out as great stories, in my opinion.
So,
and this was the end of Tracy's run on the show. We're already past his last executive story editor credit. And then he's only got one more written by episode, and he also put a pseudonym on that one, a different pseudonym on that one. So we'll see if that one's any better.
My first thought, I guess, was whether or not there's an explanation as to why he chose Keith Mills in particular. Just
probably because Keith just sounds like such an awful name.
Yeah, I guess. That's just like him saying, I hate this so much. Only a Keith would write this. I don't know. One of the things they clashed over was replacing the doctor. Tracy Torme really, really wanted to do an alien doctor who only spoke honest truth to everybody and created a bunch of conflict on the cast. And Maurice Hurley instead gave him Pulaski. See what Tracy Torme's work is like outside of this. He was a writer on Saturday Night Live from 1982 to 1983, which were not considered their good years.
Wow.
And then he was the creator of the television show Sliders.
I like Sliders. I mean, to a point, just it's a fun kind of.
I don't know that I ever watched it. This episode was directed by Cliff Bull. This is his 4th episode of Next Gen. He's directed of 25, so he's one of our regular directors.
Oh, wow.
He will direct The Best of Both Worlds Part 1 and 2, so he directs some biggies.
Okay.
So far, we've seen him direct Conspiracy, which I thought was good.
Yep.
Hiding Q and Lonely Among Us. So we're just getting into his work here.
Okay.
My first guest actor that I noted was Holling Manners. That was what my second note. I was like, oh my god, from
Holling Manners
from Angel, the series.
Oh, are you talking about Sam Anderson?
Is that what his name is?
From Lost and
oh god. Yeah, that's the same guy.
Is that the hotel manager?
Yeah, the assistant manager.
Yeah.
That's known for Forrest Gump, Airplane 2, the sequel.
Oh, yeah.
No, it's
Water
Angel
for
and
Elephants, and Ouija, Origin of Evil.
He's definitely got that guy vibe to me. Like, I know that guy. I've seen that guy.
Oh, he's got so many IMDb credits.
Yeah.
I mean, only 170. But I'm surprised this is his only appearance in Star Trek. That's it.
I don't care what IMDb is telling you. It's Lost and Angel. I mean, that is what he has to be best known for.
That's what I best know him for, and Justified. But none of those are in the top of his Law and ER as well. He was best known for. I never watched that, but that I know he was big in that. He did like 20 episodes. So, yeah, Sam Anderson's great. The bellboy was Leo Garcia.
Couldn't place him.
No.
This is what he's third best known for. He's best known for playing the CNN reporter in the movie Clear and Present Danger. He only has 14 credits.
Yeah.
So this was his third, his only Star Trek one.
Doesn't even have a Wikipedia page.
The only thing he's got, he did 14 episodes of Santa Barbara.
Ah.
I guess
the soap opera, yeah.
Yeah.
I will say that 14 is way more than I have, but I guess that would kind of qualify as an only in this context.
Yeah.
No, Keith, you've got 60 episodes, 60 live shows of IABD under your belt.
Well, when
that only counts as one credit, though. That only counts as one credit, though. The Mickey D was Greg Beecroft, who only has 8 credits, so even less well known. And his biggest thing was 33 episodes of Guiding Light. He also did some General Hospital and As the World Turns. So definitely a soap opera actor, which I think was a fine way to go with this particular story. Soap opera actors.
Oh, perfect. Yep.
Vanessa was Jill Jacobson, who has 63 credits. She's best known for Falcon Crest and Newhart. She was on Newhart. She will come back for a different character in an episode Deep Space Nine. So this is one of 2 Star Trek appearances for her. And then finally, our Texan friend, who's just credited as Texas. On IMDb, was played by Noble Willingham.
Yeah.
131 credits. He was best known for Walker, Texas Ranger. He did 155 episodes of that. The movie City Slickers, Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, Good Morning Vietnam.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about him in Ace Ventura, and I had him down. I recognized immediately as the guy from Good Morning Vietnam. He's a very sympathetic, Robin Williams, very sympathetic commander. And I always liked him in everything I saw him in. He seems like a real guy. And I shouldn't say, I know earlier I was like, oh man, you're going to be really depressed about this. But I'm sure he's a very authentic person. But he ran as a Republican from his district in Texas in 2000. I think it might have been 98. It wasn't long after this. He was a very anti-Clinton guy. He ended up not winning. He didn't beat the Democrat there.
We haven't dived into any of the specifics of the episode, so let's dive into the specifics.
I think we've gotten to a lot of it. It's just I don't know where to.
We've talked in generalities and we've talked about people involved, but I guess we didn't say what actually happened. 4 notes in half an hour, and I've got quite a few.
Gotcha. A lot of my notes are about gambling, so we'll get to those eventually.
So back to the beginning there. O'Brien seems super competent at his job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he kicked out the jams the last couple episodes. I mentioned that last week too.
Yeah, last week he was barely in it, and again, it was like the Pulaski thing. Did he have a contract that they just stuck him in there? But
it goes to your thing again, Jimmy, about you've talked about like why is this person doing the transporter? Why isn't O'Brien? And he's been like, well, yeah, I can do that, but it's going to be I got to do a little work here. It's not just anybody can be the transporter, do the transporter, which I actually really liked.
That's a good point. I sometimes complain like, oh, we didn't get enough O'Brien. Why do they even have him in this episode if they're not going to use him? But if they're going to use the transporter, it's great it's O'Brien, even if that's the only scene he gets in the episode.
Yep.
Why do Riker and Worf, when they walk into the casino, immediately pull their, or sorry, not when they walk to the casino, when they beam down into the empty space, they immediately pull their phasers out? Like, there's nothing there. They didn't have them out before they beamed. I don't understand why they did that. And then Riker, as soon as they walk in the casino and they're seeing all these strange people, then Riker holsters it immediately without assessing the situation.
That's a really good question. I think the most interesting part of that is, if you know you're going to hostile territory, just have it out already.
Right.
And otherwise, why would you pull it on a revolving door? Although while I was searching for other things about the episode, I did see somebody say, why when they're like, we see a revolving door and Picard's like, be careful. Yeah, you're right. Be careful of that revolving door. God only knows. And it turns out, obviously it quote unquote trapped them, but otherwise, why would a revolving door be? And that brings up another question. Apparently they have revolving doors in the future.
Well, they called it an antique revolving door.
Oh, that's right. Be careful.
Well, and I thought about that. Like, does that mean it went away? Because revolving doors are actually pretty efficient for some things. And that doesn't necessarily mean it went away. It just meant it looked like an antique. So.
Well, I mean, they probably have automated doors for everything.
Not for everything. Just a lot.
I would say for most, but yeah.
Yeah, probably for most.
What was I going to say? No, all right. So it didn't seem that unusual to me. Or the idea, I mean, it's funny when you put it that way. The idea of pulling your phaser out in a void and then putting it away in front of people. But my first thought that was a very strange situation to show up in, and you would think we must be in trouble. What is this thing? This endless looking void, and there's this mysterious door. I probably want to have my phaser out because something's got to be hidden around here, right? But then if you get into a room full of ordinary looking humans, you would go, okay, we better put this away so as not to seem threatening. But
there's no life signs on the planet, and these people look very out of place for where you are. So I'd still keep the phaser out because I'd say right away, it clearly can't be what it looks like.
True.
I did think the void with the poisonous gas above it, that whole outside shot looked cool to me. I liked it. I dug it.
So you're gonna say,
I thought that was the best part. One of the best parts of the episode, if not the best part. I thought it was really cool.
So I thought it was funny when they saw the people inside the place and then noted that there weren't any life signs, and then they cue the stinger for suddenly everyone, or not really stinger, but they kind of ratcheted up the ominous music as they looked at people. Those kinds of horror movie scenes where it's just suddenly the people are still behaving normally, but it's creepy that they're behaving normally.
So I loved the music in this episode, and I almost wish they would have said something out loud like, do you hear that music stinger? Because it would have fit for it. My favorite music stinger in this episode was Mickey D's entrance. I thought that was a great stinger. What confused me about their entrance in the casino is we've seen them before. If they go into a strange situation they don't understand, then they usually take a few steps back. So what would have made the most sense is they walk in the casino, they go back out the door, check in with the ship, and then go back in. And that did not happen. So that felt, maybe it's now we're midway through season 2. We're going to start moving to the action a little faster, and they're not going to take as much time as they did in season 1 investigating something. But I really thought that they would want to report in right away, even if that meant stepping back outside for a minute.
Yeah, I mean, it seems apparent in hindsight that it was written that way so they couldn't give it away so soon that they couldn't get out.
Right.
But why did we need to not give that away so soon? I don't think it would have mattered if we found that out a little earlier.
I don't think they would have explored in quite the same way, but you're right. I mean, I think it was supposed to seem fun. Well, I thought it was good use for Troy too for a bit, for being able to sort of keep in contact with and without.
That brings up one of my notes. What is Troy's perception range?
Like, well, for Riker, she could feel him anywhere. Like they're bonded, connected in zombies.
Hey, Jimmy, we're a non-explicit podcast.
No, is that true? Is that true?
I think she could feel Riker from a long, long distance away.
Okay, and that's kind of what I thought.
With.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. But yeah, I was like, how far? Like, does she have like if Alderaan blew up, she would feel it.
Yeah, I think
some
so.
voices blowing out.
If she had a friend on Alderaan, then I think so.
And if it was Riker, yeah. Okay.
If it was Riker,
that makes
definitely.
sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
So we get in the casino, we immediately hear this stuff about Rita and Mickey D. And I wrote, are we intrigued? Because at that point, I wasn't. Like, I was intrigued by a lot of things, but the Mickey D story and the bellboy, not so much.
I kept thinking, and I mentioned, so I kept thinking Mickey D was like the computer that ran the thing or whatever. I was alternately disappointed and relieved that it turned out to just be some guy who ran it in this terrible novel. So.
I stand by my alternate episode with the Klingons, but it would be kind of fun if Mickey D ended up being Ronald McDonald in full clown makeup.
God.
So Data didn't actually scan for life forms until after they checked in the hotel and got their keys, which I thought was super odd considering they weren't expecting life forms. I'd think he'd want to scan right away.
He was ready to gamble, baby. That's the way I'm in Vegas. I ignore everything else. I'm ready to gamble.
And that was followed up by my least favorite line of the episode when Data's like, there's no life signs. And Worf goes, so they're not alive? Yeah, duh, that's what he just said.
Crushing it.
Well, I mean, this goes along with what I was saying before about the perception of things. It's not they were already being kind of bombarded with things they wouldn't expect for wherever they were going to be going. But it seems like you wouldn't, I don't know, it wouldn't occur to me well, as an audience member, it might occur to me now to wonder, but just human beings showing up suddenly, your first thought is we have to interact with whatever's happening. This thing seems solid and is now asking me questions. You wouldn't think to immediately pull out a scanner and poke at it and say, are you real?
I think that's a good excuse for Riker. I don't think that's a good excuse for Data. I think Data has protocol. Data has different priorities and perceptions of things. And Data would know if they're not supposed to be life signs and you see people, the first thing you'd want to do is confirm what you're seeing. Especially if there could be something dangerous behind it, which we've seen in plenty of episodes there could be, even though there really wasn't here.
Yeah, I think that's almost sort of like the shortcut feeling of some of the things that happened in the previous episode. The characters sort of being presciently unalarmed or alarmed about a situation without there necessarily being evidence to support that feeling.
Then we meet Texas, and Riker is thoroughly amused, as Troy will later tell us in just a minute, by him. And I was too, and I totally bought that Riker was amused. That seems like a type of guy Riker would be amused by.
That's the guy you want to be near when you're in Vegas gambling or whatever. It's a fun guy who's, whatever he's up to, he could be full of it, but who cares? We're all here to have fun. And again, Noah Willingham, good actor.
So when Riker finally gets to check in with the ship, why doesn't he tell Picard anything about what they found at first? He doesn't tell him, hey, we're in a casino with these people that look like people but aren't people. That's not part of the initial check-in.
What did he say? I don't remember. I mean, I think it was more about hey, we can talk now or something. What did he say?
I think I didn't write down what he said, but I want to say it was something like, hey, yeah, we don't understand what's going on. We're looking around. We'll report back later.
Yeah, I would think a casino might be something noteworthy, but
yeah, I think he's still got to tell him what's going on. So when they're trying to leave the casino, Worf looks over and he's like, hey, what about this turbo lift? Maybe we can use that to get out. And I don't understand why Worf recognizes that as a turbo lift. Because yes, it's an elevator, but the thing that gives it away as an elevator are the arrow buttons on the side of it. The arrow buttons, and yet Worf doesn't notice those buttons, and then once they're pointed out, he doesn't know what they're for. So I want to know what he's looking at that says it's a turbo lift to him.
That's a good point.
I so didn't get it that I thought he used some other term other than turbo lift. I was like, what is he talking about? Oh, why is he referenced to calling the elevator that? And then, but yeah, that's what he said. But yeah, I agree. Why would that be different from any other door?
When they realize they can't get out, Picard tells Riker, yeah, well, we'll wait here for months if we need to.
Yeah!
Really?
Wait, what?
What? Yeah! That line was ridiculous, right?
That wasn't the Wrath of Khan special code by any means.
Months will seem like weeks. Weeks will seem like days.
Right,
days will seem like hours.
Yeah, it's like, we'd have waited months. Wait a minute, what? And I hope somebody else was on the bridge who was like, you weren't going to wait for me for months. And the planet was almost disintegrating.
Well, I think Picard, something more comforting would be like, we're going to do whatever it takes to get you out of there. Not, we're just going to sit up here for months and wait for you.
Yeah. I mean, the guys in the Enterprise didn't seem like they were freaking out about it. They were just like, let's just hang out. We're just going to be in orbit until we hear back from those guys. But they didn't seem super concerned.
Probably because Riker didn't give him any reason to be. He didn't even tell them what was going on.
Yeah, they all seemed amused.
So Data scanned for life signs, but it took him quite a while to be like, hey, by the way, there's human DNA upstairs. Let's go check it out.
I thought that was
life sign scan?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, it's not alive.
Yeah, but
seriously, I mean, they were looking for things that were alive, and he was like, now we better start looking for other kinds of clues.
Oh, you're right, because I asked about this a couple of weeks ago, why they didn't find life signs on the one planet. And we talked about it, like, well, nobody there was alive. And it's like, wait a minute. Then how do you... I know he picked up DNA, but that should have worked a couple episodes ago then.
I don't know. It just felt weird to me.
Well, I mean, that's what happens when you have that many different writers kind of throwing things in there.
Yeah.
I mean, over the course of a series or even a universe of things.
I'm going to blame Tracy Torme and Maurice Hurley for not on top of this.
Which one of them?
They would have just put their differences aside.
Yeah. I think it's Keith Mills' fault.
I hate that guy.
One of my favorite moments of the episode is when Picard starts reading the novel, and it starts with, "It was a dark and stormy night." And the look on Picard's face, the grimace, the utter disgust.
Doesn't he say that's not a good start?
That made me want to go write a good short story that starts with, "It was a dark and stormy night."
That was great, though. All right. So that brings me back to my favorite thing about my last note, which was just, they cut to the dead astronaut and they're reading through his journal, and he takes the time to write in his journal how bad he thinks the book is. Just saying, he's like, essentially saying these characters are so one-dimensional. I can't wait to die. The sweet release of death.
I liked it for a minute. I was like, why did he only write right before he died? And then I was like, you know what? No, I get it. That's fine. He knows he's going to die, so he decides to write his thoughts down. I get it.
Maybe he didn't know he was going to die.
It's probably it could have been months.
He was going to die.
Yeah. I mean, it could have been months. It could have been days. It could have been hours. But probably
those hours
at some
would seem
point.
like days. Those days would seem like weeks.
It was dark and stormy. Yeah. Oh my God.
So here's my only gambling note is when Data tells, I think, Vanessa, the odds don't favor staying put at 13.
Yeah.
I'm like, they don't? I would think most cards you can get would not break you, right? I would say the odds are to take a hit.
Yes. A 3 against a 10, you're hitting. If you don't hit, yeah. If Data said that at a table I was at in Vegas or anywhere, everyone would look at it, I'm like, what are you talking about? Get away from our table. You're ruining everything.
It threw me off so much, I Googled odds, and the odds are in your favor.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, take the hit.
3 against a 10.
It could be that he was, my thought was maybe he actually was counting cards without understanding that's what he actually was doing.
Yeah, but that was when he just walked by the table. He wasn't
right. Yeah, that was my thing too. It was like, no.
That wasn't after he's already there for a bit?
No, this was a different scene.
Yeah. So, yeah, he was leading her the wrong way.
I thought the second gambling note I have is Craps is going to be quite a bit different after the coronavirus. I don't think they're going to be blowing on dice so much.
That's a good point. And I've probably had Craps explained to me 10 different times in Vegas, and I'm always very drunk, but Craps is always the most, if you hear a big to-do at any casino, it's because the craps table is rolling. And I can never understand it. I can never understand. I've never been able to get it down, but the way they explained it last night in this episode, I was like, oh, okay, that's right. That seems very clear to me. I get it. I understood why he was winning and they were racking up the money.
I can't remember how many. I was going to say I can't remember how many times I've read the rules, tried to play a simulator game of it. It just never sticks. It just doesn't. I don't know why.
Yeah, same here. I played with people and they're just like, move your chips here, move your chips there, move them there, and I'm like, okay. But it's never stuck with me. And last night I was like, okay, this is actually the most helpful ever. Maybe because, again, I was not that drunk.
Well, it was effectively written in that same way. I mean, it's written for people who aren't necessarily supposed to be gambling, just like the thing with the blackjack thing. Although what Data said was technically incorrect for the moment, it was a shorthand for Data. Obviously, is always going to know what best to do to gamble here for some reason. Well, he's going to sort of predict what is going to happen, whether or not that's actually based on real science. And
she went ahead and hit anyway, right? Didn't she?
Yeah, and then she busted, I think.
Yeah, which, earlier when Data's playing and he's got and he says the line about, well, I guess the object of the game is to get a 21. I'm like, no, that's not right. But then the dealer had a 20, so it's like, okay, yeah, that is what he's got to go for that.
Mm-hmm.
Technically what he said was something to the effect of the object is to keep approaching 21.
Oh, that's right. And I didn't go back and look at his cards, but I felt like he must have had a 16 against a face card. Because otherwise, if you had a 17 or 7 or above, you shouldn't hit. And again, but if he was counting cards, then it doesn't matter. But
right. I mean, it felt like there had to have been some aspect of him being aware of the cards that have been played so far, but they threw in that counting card line where he didn't know what he was talking about and didn't make any indication that he actually was keeping track of anything. So I don't know.
I thought his response there was perfect about why would I count them? There's always 52.
No, it was great. No, that's says a constant number or something like that. But yeah, still, it's just it seemed like a poor opportunity or a wasted opportunity.
I guess he wouldn't have been counting cards because most casinos you're going to have a couple decks or like 5 decks, so they're constantly reshuffling. So that's why the house has even better odds because it isn't just 52 cards. So it's even harder to count them. But so he actually just made the logical calculation outside of counting cards, which explains even further why he was like, why would I be counting cards? But
the best part of Data blatantly cheating, though, was when he broke the dice and rebalanced them. And I'm like, the guy running the table didn't notice that at all? Well, it was pretty obvious.
I couldn't decide like in Casino, De Niro runs a casino and there's a part where he's synchronizing the dice. And in my mind, whenever I've watched it, I've thought he was synchronizing to make sure they were fair. But now I'm thinking maybe he was synchronizing. You could have been going either way. So in my mind watching this, I thought Data was actually making them proper so he knew how to throw them.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
I think I guess he's still cheating on some level, but he's still using the regulation dice.
It seemed like essentially he was unloading the dice.
Right, but it was so obvious. And it was such like, I'm going to rebalance these. And then you hear it crack and everything and like nobody's talking like, okay, but the guy at the table should have noticed.
In a better novel, he would have noticed.
Yes, that's exactly it. So these are fictional characters, and at best, these are like NPCs. I mean, how sophisticated do they have to be to? The aliens aren't really going to care what the one human astronaut is, whether he actually wins or not.
Well, that's true. The blackjack dealer never commented either.
My last note, not my last note overall, but my last note I wrote down for the episode. So, do any of these people have any kind of sentience? It gets back to that question. Yeah, I that's where I landed.
It certainly didn't seem like it. This is where it still felt like they were NPCs up to a certain point. They were somewhat sophisticated, for interacting with them, but certainly not enough to care to the extent of, hey, are you cheating or am I real or what happens when you leave? Those kinds of things. And
that's why I didn't understand Riker saying don't interfere. It's like, that's not going to change anything that happens in here. It's they don't care that much about what you're like. They didn't even react to Worf or their uniforms or Data or anything really.
Yeah.
They actually more to Data as weird gambling talk rather than anything else.
You get the impression that if you came back and talked to Texas 7 days in a row, he'd just keep repeating himself.
Yep, exactly.
I did have so much fun watching Data roll those dice, though. Almost as much fun as he was having.
Yeah, it was great. His awkward style was fantastic.
And his clicks and his everything.
So I have one more gambling note and then two more casino notes. Well, actually one more casino note. So I can't remember what is it. Does the ship tell Riker, hey, you're supposed to be very generous foreign investors? Is that what it is?
Yes.
Something like
tells
that.
Riker that.
Yeah. So they've won $12 million And at no point have they tipped yet? Are you kidding me? What is wrong with you guys? Do they not have casinos in the galaxy that
Correct.
they ever go to? Because
No, they don't have money. Starfleet, the Federation doesn't have money,
Right,
remember?
Because I win $70 at a casino, I'm handing it out like I'm name your rich person. I'm handing it out like a Rockefeller for an older reference.
See, I really didn't know about that aspect of the etiquette. I'd never been that far into the idea
Yeah,
of
me neither.
like a high roller or anything, or expected necessarily. But every now and then I'll see in a movie, they say something like, then you tip out the dealer or something.
Right.
Like throw a chip at him or something. And it's just like, well, but I've certainly never been at that level of.
If I was at a table and I would win $12 million, that dealer's going home with like thousands of dollars.
I'm just gonna go hang out in casinos and watch people win and get some of the wealth.
Yeah, wait to tip. All right, no. Here's the thing about that. Wouldn't they suspect that you guys were colluding or something? I mean, if you're too nice to the dealer, it seems like you're that overt.
Well, I think the bigger issue would be if you would win $12 million at a table, somebody would come by and be like, hey, let's take you out to dinner. Let's do something else. And then figuring out how to get you to come back so you can give that $12 million right back.
And I also think they're probably monitoring how each dealer's table does. And if one dealer keeps having people win a little bit more, they're not keeping that job.
And that's why the dealers switch out every 20 minutes and that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
But what I'm saying, you do really well. Then suddenly you hand off some cash or some of it to the dealer. I don't know. It just seems suspicious to me. Or if I were that kind of, that sort of oversight, that would make things look more suspicious.
Yeah, I think you'd keep your dealer job for a week, Keith. Or maybe 20 minutes. I liked the solution to this where Picard figured out the game and basically gave it to Riker. At least that's how I took it.
Oh, right, yes.
You got to be the investors or whatever?
Yeah. I mean, he didn't say that explicitly, but he gave Riker what he needed to win.
Yeah. No, I like the way that worked out. I mean, the solution was logical, and it's not necessarily something that you could have figured out on the ground unless you were looking through the book. And Data, I guess, just didn't occur to him to become other characters. So
yeah, I mean,
unfortunately, Riker's like at the end, well, none of it makes any sense, and I'm like, really? Because it all seemed to make sense to me.
I mean, the entire episode is literally a false construct by those aliens. But that said, and I guess this is how I feel about the whole episode. It's a very false construct within it and everything, but it's fun, just like gambling.
Any other notes?
If you win, I only have 2 more notes. It makes sense that they can't get out because that's how casinos are set up. That's exactly how they're set up. I know at first I just thought it would be
harder to get out.
I thought of Hotel California because they go to the assistant manager and they're like, "Hey, we want to leave." He's like, "All right, go ahead. You can leave whenever you want." But you can check out anytime you want, but you can never leave. The one other thing I thought was interesting was the name of the ship was the Charybdis, which is the classic Greek mythology sea monster, or whatever.
I thought it was one of the islands, like the rock and the hard place kind of thing, wasn't it?
The Scylla is the rock. The Charybdis is the sea monster that's out in the sea in between. So the Charybdis is the hard place, and the Scylla is the rock. So I thought, which kind of feels like you've doomed that ship before it leaves. But yeah, so that was my last note.
Keith, do you have other notes?
Only I thought I didn't really write it down, but I thought it was funny at the time. The effect, quote unquote, they were using for being trapped was to just keep walking around the revolving door back into the same frame.
Yeah.
The one thing I had comment on that is, shouldn't they only go halfway through the revolution? And not all the way around?
I know it's they didn't bother. Well, so they wouldn't have to do that thing of, however they would have to do it. But it's funny they did it as a one continuous shot instead of what you would think they would do instead.
Yeah.
It would have been funnier if like they all went in one at a time and each one came out and looked around like, I gotta go back in. And they could have done that a little longer.
Fashion. A+ of pulling out costumes from other movies and television.
Yeah. Vanessa's costume, hand tipping, speaking of gambling, tipping hands, was fantastic. Yeah, it was very cheesy, for lack of a better term.
But perfect for what it was doing.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, for a bad paperback novel, absolutely. So this leads into my if we're done with notes, alternate episode.
Uh-huh.
So mine was they're stuck in a better casino because that was not. And again, this goes back to the novel. Apparently, it was not set at a nice Vegas casino. It was definitely set in a.
Then I should say the alternate episode is Bada Bing Bada Bang, which is a Deep Space Nine episode that's essentially Ocean's 11
Oh, okay, all right.
in a
I'm
Las
looking
Vegas
forward to that.
casino.
I'm looking forward to that.
Not a futuristic Las Vegas casino. They have a holodeck lounge singer that's permanently in a casino, and we visit it in dozens of episodes.
And that reminds me, one of the things I stumbled across while looking for stuff was kind of a, you see one of those wrap ups or summaries or ratings of the episode, and they said what essentially a holodeck episode actually turns out to be fun, which is kind of, again, sums up my feelings about it, which is like, oh God, you guys know I do like the holodeck episodes. The concept of the holodeck, I still have issues with some of the particulars, but this is another one that actually it turned out fun.
Yeah, I liked this one a lot. Let's rank annoying factor. Wesley, 1 to 10.
Was he? He
was in it.
Yeah, I gave him a 1.
1. I can barely remember what he was doing in it, if anything. I think he was just being a functional crew member, essentially, right? So
he was super annoying. So 1. That was for you, Keith.
Thank you.
Yeah, I gave him 1. There was nothing in there. Steven, who was your annoyance of the episode?
The Thadans. Come on, do better with the books. Do better with creating a false world to try and help a guy. I mean, did he not have pictures in his wallet or something like that, or something on his cell phone that you could have pulled from? It's a crappy paperback novel. And if you're going to use that, be imaginative. You don't have to stay that faithful to it. So.
I guess at the time that this would have come out, we wouldn't have had cell phones with cameras and so forth.
Nope.
So, I mean, the writers wouldn't have conceived of...
Right, of course, yeah.
And, well, even
the astronaut would have had one.
Within the world, would the astronaut have even had a phone with him?
You're right.
Would they still do that? I don't know. Communicators?
I feel like this advanced race could have got inside his head and found something he would have liked a lot more. Like, again, it reminds me of... Again, I'm going back to Groundhog Day because it's a very similar thing, which is, early on, Bill Murray's like, why couldn't this have been when I went? I think he says when I went to the Caribbean. I think he might have actually say that, where he's like, that was a good day. But no, I'm stuck in Punxsutawney for the rest of my life. And I have to feel like that this Commander Richie felt the same way. Like, why is this the thing that they're repeating for me? I had so many other things in my head.
So
he wrote that.
I was going to say, I don't think just because they're advanced, we should think that they can read minds. There's nothing that
fair.
Correlates. However, once it became clear he wasn't happy with it, they could have adjusted it.
Yeah.
If they were even still there. It felt like they just kind of like, here you go. We got to go do something else now.
Yep.
Well, I guess they could have done that.
Jimmy's question was my annoying character, I guess, would have been maybe the author of the book.
Not a character, but I'll allow it.
The book itself. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go with the assistant manager because he was just unnecessarily grumpy. He's like, talk to the manager, but the manager's busy. And I don't know. I like that actor, but I did not care for him in this role very much.
That is a very good NPC kind of thing he ended up doing. So, yeah.
Who was anybody got a crush of the episode?
Yeah, I don't have a good reason for this other than she was blonde and beautiful. I liked Vanessa. There is no shred of like, oh, she was an interesting character and this or that. No, she's just a gorgeous lady. She was fun. I mean, she liked this episode. Not a lot of substance to her, but she's a lot of fun. I wouldn't mind hanging out with her.
Keith?
You wouldn't mind getting a beer with her?
Well, and if I was Richie, I would have pursued her and tried to, I'd have gone that angle.
Not really. I mean, there was, a lot of extras in the background or whatever, but just nothing really.
You gonna stick with Dr. Salar?
Yeah.
I'm gonna stick with the teenage version of Anya. Okay, so we're ranking the episode. I want to go kind of higher on this, honestly. Let's start with Elementary Dear Data because that's a holodeck episode, so that's comparable.
I know I'm lower on this episode than you guys. I think I'd go lower.
I'm going to say lower. This is, the recency bias makes me want to put it a little higher simply because I can barely remember Elementary Dear Data at this point. But I remember the idea of the sentient character made it somewhat more compelling to us at the time, and that it went a different way than it could have.
Oh, I agree. I think it goes below that. This was almost a holodeck episode, so that's why I started there.
Yeah.
Right below that is the Dauphine or Dauphin, whatever it is.
Dauphin.
Dauphina.
I'm gonna go below.
Yeah, I guess I think we're starting to get in the ballpark at least.
Okay. I might have gone above it, but we'll keep going. Below that is The Child.
In retrospect, it's just I felt like I would had a better time watching this than The Child. So
Oh, yeah.
there's that. I mean,
But The Child did have some higher concepts.
Yeah, there is. I would say this episode was more fun to watch, but I like The Child better. But like I said, I'm definitely the Debbie Downer on this episode. Not again, and I'm not even saying I disliked it. I'm just saying I didn't love it.
I think I could go either way with The Child.
my problem here, or I think what's keeping me hanging on to this one, I think for one thing, it's speaks well for the episode that there's enough rewatch for Jimmy to have exhausted this one and still be able to come back to it. And this is one of the few things that was, for lack of a better word, iconic enough for me to recall this long ago, or for as long ago as it was when I saw it. It's not like the whole episode stuck with me, but there were little bits of it, like just the moment of Data with the Dice and so forth.
So are you voting for above The Child and Steven's voting for below The Child?
What's under The Child?
Unnatural Selection. I would definitely put it above that.
Yeah.
This is where it gets kind of mixed up in that. Yeah, I didn't like that episode either, so I would rate this above that.
And if you want to go below The Child and above Unnatural Selection, I'd go with that.
That's where I would go, but
That feels reasonable.
Okay. So this is episode 6 of 12 so far.
terrible.
A little lower than I probably would have put it on. I don't know. I think I would have put that Dolphin episode lower. So maybe I would have put this number 4 after Data. I don't know. We'll see.
And I feel like,
Anyway.
by the time we get to the end, we're going to be like, why did we put that one that high? And
That every season.
Everybody talks about how the first 2 seasons of TNG are kind of messed up, and I really feel like the second season has been so much stronger than the first.
Yeah, I think, like we said, I thought we hit a really good string, and I think even these last, 3 or 4, it's still been enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not so in agreement on Contagion, but most of the last ones.
Oh, well, yeah, I know. Yeah, I know you were very down on that.
I am. Next week, we're going to talk Time Squared. The Enterprise comes across its own shuttlecraft adrift in space, and an unconscious duplicate of Captain Picard is inside.
Huh.
I love that kind of thing.
Okay.
Maurice Hurley has a writing credit on this.
Oh, you
so
had
now
me,
we're going to
and then
compare
you lost
apples to apples here. He story by somebody else, but teleplay by Maurice Hurley. So next week we're going to battle. Is Maurice Hurley better? Is Tracy Torme better?
Oh boy.
Until then, live long
and prosper. And if you have a 3 against the dealer show and a 10, you have a 13. Hit.
And just don't go in any strange revolving doors.
Exactly.
It's All Been Done presents
Who's Got the Time?